Welcome to Baby Flapula. Today we will talk about aliens. Where are they? Why don't they talk to us? Why is the universe empty? You know what else is a mystery? Kids. They are like 3 years old and they already behave like grammar experts. They form complex syntactical sentences and then they go mess up basic things like you and me. They are like, oh, you hungry? Me, make food please. They don't get that you and me are deictic pronouns. Pronouns whose meanings are dependent on the context of utterance. If I say me refers to me. But if you say me refers to you. Okay, I guess we can forgive them for messing that up, because how could they know before somebody would point it out to them? The fact that you and me behave in that way, that's just purely conventional. It wouldn't have to be that way. Meanings are arbitrary, as the 19th century linguist Ferdinand de Saussure observed. There's nothing that would resemble me in the word me, just like there is nothing that would resemble you in the word you, just like there is nothing dog-like in the word dog. Once upon a time there was a guy who was like, haha, gnoosh, glump, gloom, dog, and then everybody was like, okay, sure, dog. You know, it was based purely on convention. It's whatever. They just agreed that this is dog. There's no platonic idea of dog that would dictate that dog has to be dog. In the American Sign Language, me is pointing to your own chest and you is pointing to whoever you are talking to. Now, one would think that this is a bit harder to mess up, because there seems to be a natural connection between, pointing to yourself and meaning yourself. But as a now prominent study showed, kids who use sign language consistently mess it up, and they are like that when they mean someone else and like that when they mean themselves. That's because they have learned the language through how other people use it. And when people were like, you come here, then they learned that this means them. And when people were like, yeah, I am something, they were like, okay, so this move, this gesture is them. So they were like, okay, this is me and this is them. Because the sole fact where the finger's pointing didn't seem of any relevance to the kids. They just copy the gestures. And what this example demonstrates is how conventional signs are, and that they can in fact be interpreted in many ways. This leads to some unsettling conclusions. If everything about language and meanings is just conventional, then how can we ever know that we are actually, accepting the same convention? And that we are actually agreeing about what a certain word means. Linguistic textbooks love to share this story about a major fuck up in history, where like Australian colonizers are like, they come to Australia and then they are like, okay, well, what is this animal? We have never seen it before. And foreigners being like kangaroo. Then the colonizers are like, oh, okay, so this is a kangaroo, I guess. And the punchline then is that in the language of the foreigners, kangaroo means I don't understand. Which is a made up anecdote, by the way, as I failed to clarify in the previous video. This anecdote is just a shorthand for that famous radical translation thought experiment by Willard van Orman Quine, where you basically have a linguist who travels to some distant land, and there he discovers a new tribe with a previously unheard of language. So he wants to study that language, and he observes how tribesmen use that language, so he could infer, some meanings and stuff. So one day a rabbit jumps from the bushes and other tribesmen go like, oh, gavagai, gavagai. And the linguist wants to be like, oh, okay, so of a guy equals rabbit. But no, they could also mean like God has manifested himself in this fur, or look at that cute thing, or dinner time. There's so many logically plausible alternatives, and he can't really know which one to choose. And somehow we are all like that linguist, just that we are not studying a distant tribe, we are studying people around us, our family or society. And we can't really know what they mean with each word. We can always think that we are talking about the same thing, but in fact we are not. And this is a kind of horrible skeptical challenge known as the Wittgenstein's paradox. But no, it's here. But today we want to talk about aliens. If humans have more or less the same experience of the world, the same psychological constitution, and the same culture background, and more or less the same beliefs about the world through a shared web of beliefs about the world based on science, religion, cosmology, everything. And also because we grow up together, we learn the languages together through a associative play we do with other people every day, then maybe, it's debatable, but maybe we could say that, we can have some confidence that with other people we are talking more or less about the same things, or at least we can know what other people mean when they use words. But what if you have a civilization of beings that come from a radically different environment, have a radically different psychology, and radically different geography, everything, even science, religion, everything. How could we talk with this civilization? What would be our common ground for that? What if, just like in the movie Arrival, fucking black X drop from the sky and suddenly we are faced with a radically different civilization not being able to converse? People in the movie quickly realize that that's quite a puzzle, and they hire a gorgeous looking linguist to solve it. And the movie does quite a good job at exploring those questions about language and how we can talk. Since you clicked on this video, which is about talking with aliens, I suppose that you have already seen the movie, but if not, you should watch it.
Kangaroo.
What is that?
Talking about science fiction and language, it would be a sin not to mention Stanisław Lem, the Polish writer, most known for his novel Solaris, eternalized by André Tarkowski. There's also that George Clooney version, but Solaris is a story about our failure to understand extraterrestrial life, which was a common theme in Lem's work. Let me just grab something. Oh my god! Be right back! Be right back! Okay, I'm here. Okay, this is a book that I'm currently reading by Stanisław Lem. It's called Master's Voice, and it's basically about us receiving a message from the skies. We don't know what it is. We try to investigate it, and we fail brutally. What is the word? It's the most philosophical science fiction that I have ever read. Lem paints a grim alternative to, the somehow optimistic vision of Arrival, where people not only solve the puzzle, but they also gain new abilities when they acquire this language. And I think that Lem would find this story quite philosophically naive. First, because how would he solve that? He would be like, you can't just construct an alien language like that. But also because if Arrival goes full on sapir-whorfi, then Lem is more like the diametral opposite. He's like, no, learning a new language won't give you radical new insights into the nature of things, because we don't really think primarily in a language, which is up to debate actually. But not to get carried away, the universe out there is scary. This different alien civilization with a radically different psyche, biology, environment, geography, culture, everything. How could we even hope to be understood or to understand such an alien race? Like Wittgenstein said.
And yeah, I am a Wittgensteinian. I use some sort of linguistics to ignore the hard problems in philosophy.
If a lion could speak, we would not be able to understand what he said.
His idea is that the mode of being a lion differs from what it means to be a human. So the language of the lion will behave differently, and it will name different sorts of things.
To imagine a language is to imagine a form of life. It's what we do and who we are that gives meaning to our words. I can't understand a lion's language because I don't know what his world is like.
Now imagine a being that is completely detached from our evolutionary string, and it's not even from the same environment. What common ground could we possibly find with that being? By the way, Immanuel Kant, one of the greatest, if not the greatest philosopher of all time, briefly mentions some alien stuff in his Critique of Pure Reason. According to Kant's philosophy, space and time don't really exist on their own as things in the world, but it's more about our psyche, projecting time and space onto the world so that we can perceive it. And according to Kant, this doesn't have to be shared by all rational beings, and he explicitly mentions in his Critique of Pure Reason that were we to find a extraterrestrial intelligent race, they wouldn't necessarily have to share this conception of space and time, so they could, so to speak, live outside of space and time. The point is that when we say that aliens could be different from us, we really mean different.
Lasting more than 3 decades, Pioneer 10 was the first spacecraft to travel through the asteroid belt.
In the year 1972, an aluminium plaque, I don't know how to pronounce this, but an aluminium plaque was put onto the spacecraft Pioneer 10, and a year later the same happened to the Pioneer 11, and it featured a pictorial message in case either Pioneer 10 or 11 would be intercepted by extraterrestrial intelligent life. It featured a male figure and a female figure and our location in the universe. A year before that, NASA contacted Carl Sagan, who held some lecture about the possibility of communicating with aliens at some conference, and he was like, fuck yeah, let's do that. And then they put some various shit onto the plaques, like, balls, boobs, fucking hydrogen, motherfucker, and a map where they can find us, commit a genocide, and steal our precious cow dung. Okay, but to be fair, there is some very sound logic behind the design, as visas aptly explained. But what are the philosophical assumptions that underlie this project? Well, obviously the people behind the project had to find some common ground between, us and this supposed alien civilization. So what could that be? For example, the sentence "Grandma died, funeral on Wednesday" can be translated, oddly enough, into every human language ever, from Latin to Hindu to some dialects of the Apache and Eskimos. Every human has a mother's mother. Every human civilization ever has some ritual of disposing dead bodies. And because all the humans, experience time. Okay, I know, what about the Amandava tribe, which supposedly has no concept of time in the language? I know, okay, it's debatable, although these, such reports ought to be taken with a grain of salt. If the aliens would procreate like amoebas, for example, they wouldn't really know what a parent is. And if they would never die, for example, they wouldn't really know what happened to this subject called grandma. And what the fuck a funeral is. This is a very primitive example that, presupposes a bunch of stuff, but it's just to illustrate some of the possible problems when communicating with someone radically different. But there certainly has to be at least one thing in common. And that would have to be that humans and aliens both inhabit the same universe. The basic laws of nature will be true, for us and them. The human science and alien science will have to overlap, at least in some content, and that will be, talk about the fundamental laws of nature. As Carl Sagan puts it, how could we possibly decode such an extraterrestrial message? The message will be based upon commonalities between the transmitting and receiving civilizations. Those commonalities are what we truly share in common: the universe around us, science and mathematics. But is it true that both human and alien science will have to share the same content when talking about the world? This is where we get to a very interesting problem in the philosophy of science called the underdetermination problem. The problem is that for any set of data, there are many alternative theories that you can construct around this. The theory itself or the conclusions are not logically determined by the data itself. Even if we just look at our own history, we had very different theories of the same phenomena. What light is, for example. Particles, waves in a light ether, electromagnetic waves, wave particles. But nonetheless, even if our conception of light did change throughout history, our mathematical descriptions of its behavior never did. Snell's law, was formulated in 1621, before Descartes even got down to business. And just as it was formulated on that day, it has remained valid until today. It has never changed. So that could be an answer to our question. The mathematical descriptions in our scientific theories never changed. They have remained constant. So there seems to be only one way of how we can describe the world move. So maybe that could be our common ground with the aliens, describing basically mathematics or mathematical descriptions of the world, at least. That's where we get down to questions about the nature of mathematical truths and analyticity and logics, everything like that is just like a rabbit hole. But it's a very interesting field to investigate, and it's really a shame that, a lot of science fiction just brushes those questions aside with the use of some device like the Babylonian fish that you stick in your ear in Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But when storytellers go out of their way to explore those philosophical questions about language, that's really cool. Sadly, I don't have any satisfying conclusion today. But since I wasted 15 minutes of your time, maybe I can let you in on a secret. After years of research, together with my department, we have devised a universal message that every alien civilization could understand. So I will present you with our message to the aliens.
Hello, aliens. We know you can't understand these words right now. You're probably not even registering any sound. And if you are, you're probably thinking this is just some weird noise, a byproduct of our imperfect technology. That wave ruptures in the air carry so much significance for us must be funny to you. But we hope you'll decode our message. We are the human race. Hello. We have 2 arms, 2 legs, and a nose. We make sounds to communicate. Hello, Bob. Hello, Tim. Beautiful weather today. Yes, Bob, you are certainly right. This was a project for university, so nobody really gave a shit. Fuck you, aliens. Humans die and then they go to the ground and worms eat them. This bothers us so much that we made up a god. This is me, and I am smarter than anyone else, so I don't need a god. I'm sad. I have a lot of questions but no answer. I want to believe in immortality, but instead I chase a metaphorical immortality with recording myself and putting it online. I believe that the goal of life is to maximize happiness. But life is suffering. Killing humanity would reduce suffering. Do it. Do it. Do it now. Do it now.